He called her a humpback, not knowing it was her, and now she can't let him touch her. He looked at a video of the woman he loved and called her a humpback. And the worst part is he had absolutely no idea he was talking about her. She was standing right there, watching his face twist in disgust at her own body, and he did not even know it. That is the kind of moment that does not leave a person. That is the kind of thing that rewires something deep inside you, quietly and permanently, before you even have a chance to process what just happened. She saw his face change in real time. She watched him recoil. The warmth that had been in his eyes all evening just drained out, replaced by something instinctive and unguarded, something she had never seen directed at anything connected to her before. It happened in a fraction of a second, and it also felt like it lasted forever, the way certain moments do when your brain knows it needs to record every detail. She was close enough to read it clearly. There was no ambiguity in what his expression said. And then she had to be the one to tell him what he had just done, which means she had to find words while standing in the wreckage of something she had not even fully registered yet. So they have been together a little over a year. By every measure, this is a good relationship. He is communicative and affectionate, the kind of guy who gives people the benefit of the doubt even when they do not deserve it. He is thoughtful with his words, careful with people's feelings, even the feelings of people he does not particularly like. He is the kind of person who remembers small details, who checks in without being asked, who makes the people around him feel genuinely considered. That is who she thought she was building a life with. So when her old college roommate came to visit and started sharing stories from back in the day, everything felt light and fun and easy. The apartment was warm, there was probably wine on the table, laughter coming easy the way it does when you are among people you trust completely. Her boyfriend was eating it up, genuinely curious about this part of her life she rarely talked about, leaning in, asking follow-up questions, the kind of engaged presence that makes you feel like your history actually matters to someone. And then her friend mentioned a dance competition from sophomore year, and started scrolling back to find the video, and the whole night shifted. Here is the thing about that sophomore year. It was not just a random period in her life. Something significant happened during that time, something that cracked her open in a way she had never been cracked before. A group of girls, a prank, a moment of public humiliation so sharp and targeted that it changed the entire trajectory of her life. She did not give us every detail, and honestly she did not have to, because the impact speaks for itself. She lost 100 pounds in 2 years. She changed her style, her hair, the way she did her makeup, and the entire social circle around her. She rebuilt herself from the foundation upward, carefully and deliberately, piece by piece, like someone reconstructing a house that had been knocked flat by something no one saw coming. The person in that video is someone she had to grieve and rebuild and eventually make peace with, and that journey was not a small thing. It was everything. Most people in her current life have no idea that version of her even existed. It is not something she hides out of shame, exactly, but it is also not something she leads with, because why would she? She is a different person now in almost every visible way. She has years of distance and hard work and quiet personal victories between herself and that girl in the video. So when her roommate started pulling out that old footage, she was not worried, because she trusted the room. She trusted the people in it. She had no reason to brace herself. She was finishing up the dishes when they started watching. There is something almost unbearably ordinary about that detail. She was just standing at the sink, the water running, probably catching fragments of conversation from the other room, completely unaware that anything was about to change. She walked out mid-video. She came back into the room carrying that easy, comfortable feeling of a good evening. And that is when she saw his face. He asked who the humpback was. Out loud. With zero hesitation. Like the word was just sitting right there in his mouth, waiting. I cannot overstate how much that one word matters here. This is not a case of someone being casually rude or thoughtlessly blunt. This is not someone saying, oh, she looked different, or wow, that is a big change. He used a word that is specifically designed to dehumanize. A word with centuries of weight behind it, a word that has been used to strip people of their dignity and reduce them to nothing but the shape of their body. And he said it reflexively, which means it was not a performance. It was not cruelty for sport. It was not a bid for attention or a bad joke he miscalculated. It was just what he actually thought when he looked at her. It was the first thing his brain produced. It was the unfiltered, unguarded, unedited version of how he processes bodies that look like hers did. That is the part she cannot shake. Not the word itself, though the word is awful. The part underneath the word. The part that tells her something true about what lives in him without his permission. She told him he needed to leave. He apologized. He looked devastated, the kind of devastated that is real and immediate, the kind that comes from watching something precious crack right in front of you and knowing your own hands did it. And she does not doubt that he was. She does not doubt that he genuinely loves her and would never intentionally say something like that to her face. But here is what the apology cannot undo. The apology cannot go back in time and change what was already sitting in his head when he looked at that video. The apology cannot remove the image she now has burned into her memory of his face pulling back in disgust. She walked into a room and saw her boyfriend react to her body the same way someone might react to something repulsive, and no flower delivery the next morning can fully overwrite that. Flowers are for celebrating things and marking meaningful occasions, not for erasing the memory of someone's face. She tried to move on. She told him it was fine when it was not fine. And that pattern, of performing okayness while feeling something entirely different underneath, is one of the most exhausting things a person can do in a relationship. It costs something every single time. You are not just carrying your own pain, you are also actively managing his comfort, protecting him from the full weight of what he caused while simultaneously trying to convince yourself that you have processed something you have not actually processed at all. You can see her pulling back. She does not reach out first anymore. She feels the urge to recoil when he touches her. She cannot look at him the same way. These are not dramatic reactions. These are completely natural responses from someone whose body now carries a specific kind of doubt it did not carry before. She should not have to convince herself that her boyfriend finds her attractive. That should not be a question that lives in her body. It should not be something she rehearses quietly while getting dressed in the morning or lying awake at night. It should not require active mental effort to push away. The safety of knowing you are desired by the person you are with is not a luxury. It is a basic condition of being in a loving relationship. And she no longer has it. Then his friends got involved. That is where things went from bad to worse in a completely different direction. He reached out to a mutual friend for advice, which is a fairly understandable move for someone who is panicking and does not know how to fix what they broke. When you have caused harm and you do not know how to repair it, reaching out to someone you trust feels like the logical next step. But that friend somehow found an old photo of her from before the weight loss through someone's Instagram, and it spread through their entire social circle like something spilled on a table with nowhere to go. And instead of support, she got people telling her she should not be upset because he is just a guy who likes fit girls, and she always knew that, so what is the problem? Wow. Just wow. No, really, let that land. The framing of that response is so revealing it almost deserves its own video. The implication is that her feelings are invalid because she knew going in that he had a preference, and therefore any judgment he makes against bodies that do not fit that preference is just neutral information she should have already accounted for. That is not how relationships work. That is not how love works. When you are with someone, the expectation is not that you are protected only within the boundaries of their type. The expectation is that you are safe. That you are seen as a whole person and not a before and after photo. She did not sign up to be evaluated against a standard she did not know was being applied. She signed up to be loved. He cried when he found out what his friends did. He said he did not want to lose her. And she believes him. She even said he was a great guy, and that matters, because she is not someone painting him as a villain to make her own feelings easier to justify. She is someone sitting with the painful complexity of loving a person who hurt her in a way she cannot fully explain to people who were not there to see it. She does not want to lose him either. But there is a difference between wanting to keep the relationship and being able to feel the same inside it, and that gap is exactly where she is stuck right now. She can want two things at once and still feel the distance between them growing. She keeps framing this as something small. She calls it one small thing. And I understand why she does that, because minimizing it makes it feel more manageable, like something she should be able to just push through if she tries hard enough, like the problem is her reaction and not the thing that caused it. But what happened was not small. What happened was a direct confrontation with one of the deepest wounds of her life, delivered by the person who was supposed to be the safest place she had. That wound was not healed. It was managed. And there is a very significant difference between those two things. She is not asking whether she should stay or leave. She is asking how she gets over it. And that is a very specific and important question, because it means she already wants to stay. She just does not know how to close the distance between where she is emotionally and where she wants to be. Here is what I want her to hear. Getting over something like this is not about talking yourself into feeling okay with it. It is not about reminding yourself that people are allowed to have types and that he did not mean it and that he loves you now. All of that can be true and still not reach the place that got hurt. The place that got hurt is a much older wound than this relationship. She spent years building herself back up from that sophomore year. She did not just lose weight and change her wardrobe. She reclaimed her own narrative, her own sense of worth, her own right to take up space in a room without apology. And what his face did in that moment was reach all the way back to that version of her, the one she worked so hard to move past, and remind her that she was still in there somewhere, still capable of being looked at like that. The work she needs to do is not about forgiving him, though that matters too. The work is about making sure she does not let his one moment of thoughtlessness become the new voice in her head that narrates how she sees herself. Because here is the truth. His reaction was about his own shallow wiring, not about her worth. She survived something that broke a lot of people. She rebuilt herself not once but completely. She became a woman who teaches children and loves literature and carries herself with enough confidence to walk away from a painful moment instead of collapsing inside it. That is not the biography of someone who should be defined by a careless word from a man who immediately knew he had done something unforgivable. He owes her more than flowers and apologies. He owes her a real conversation, not about whether he is sorry, but about where that word came from and what it says about what he actually sees when he looks at bodies that do not look like hers. That is an uncomfortable conversation. It is the kind of conversation that could genuinely clarify things or genuinely end them. But she deserves to have it. She deserves to know whether she is in a relationship with someone whose instincts align with who she is and where she came from, or whether she has been building something on top of a foundation that was always going to crack under pressure. If he can sit with her in that conversation honestly and with real vulnerability, then maybe this is survivable. Maybe this is even something they can grow through together. But if he deflects, or gets defensive, or leans back on how much he loves her right now as a way to avoid examining what his gut did in that moment, then she has her answer. Love is not enough if the person cannot be honest about themselves. She asked how she gets over this. The real answer is she does not get over it. She gets through it. And she gets through it by deciding what she actually needs from the other side. I'm 12 weeks pregnant, barely eating, and my fiancé lost sleep over a cheeseburger. She is 12 weeks pregnant, throwing up constantly, surviving on 5 foods, and her fiancé did not sleep last night because she ate a plain cheeseburger. Not a bucket of fries, not a milkshake, not a full fast food meal. A single plain cheeseburger. That was the thing that sent him into a sleepless spiral of worry. That was the thing that made him feel entitled to express disappointment to the woman who spent all of yesterday gagging through meals and trying desperately to keep something, anything, in her body. Let me say that again so it fully lands. She was sick all day. She threw up eggs. She barely got through lunch. And the one thing she could actually eat without suffering, the one small mercy her body offered her in an otherwise brutal day, he decided to make her feel guilty about. He looked at that wrapper and saw a failure. She looked at that wrapper and felt relief for the first time in hours. First trimester nausea is not a preference. It is not a phase where you just need to push through or make better choices. For a lot of women it is genuinely debilitating, and for some it crosses into a medical condition called hyperemesis gravidarum that requires actual treatment. She is already pursuing medication because her symptoms are that severe. She mentioned that she cannot walk outside on a cold day without gagging. She cannot be near someone at the gym with a strong scent. The smell of most meats triggers her. She went from being someone who intentionally lost 60 pounds, who loved eating healthy, who was medically at a great weight for her age and height, to someone who has 5 foods she can reliably keep down. And one of those 5 foods happens to be a plain McDonald's cheeseburger. That is not a failure. That is survival. The human body during early pregnancy goes through a level of hormonal upheaval that most people who have not experienced it genuinely cannot comprehend. Estrogen and progesterone spike dramatically in the first trimester. Blood sugar fluctuates. The digestive system slows down. Smell sensitivity increases to a degree that can feel almost supernatural. Foods that used to be fine become unbearable. Foods that used to be off limits become the only thing the body will accept. This is not a character flaw. This is biology doing exactly what it is supposed to do to protect a developing pregnancy. And the cruel irony is that the women who feel the sickest in the first trimester often have the healthiest pregnancies, because the hormones driving that nausea are also the ones driving strong fetal development. Her body is doing something extraordinary. She is building an entire human being from scratch, cell by cell, organ by organ, day by exhausting day, all while feeling like she might be sick at any moment. All while going to work or running errands or trying to be a functional person in the world while her insides are staging a full revolt. And instead of being met with awe and tenderness and support, she is being met with a man who is cataloging her food wrappers and losing sleep over them. That is not love. That is control dressed up as concern. Here is what bothers me most about his behavior. He did not come to her confused. He did not say, "Hey, I am worried about nutrition, can we talk about what you have been able to eat?" He came to her with the conclusion already formed. He told her he did not sleep. He told her she was giving their baby addictive unhealthy food. He did not ask, he announced. He did not sit beside her and reach for her hand. He arrived with a verdict and delivered it like she owed him an explanation for surviving. He made his distress her problem at a moment when she is already suffering, already miserable, already doing everything she can just to get through the day. And the effect of that, whether he intended it or not, is that she now has to manage his feelings about her eating on top of managing her own symptoms. That is an extra burden she should not be carrying. She said it perfectly herself. She wants a partner who is supportive and understanding, not someone who makes her feel guilty for trying to eat something. That sentence tells you everything about where they are right now. It tells you that she has already noticed the gap between what she needs and what she is receiving. That is not a small thing. That is a woman who is already learning to expect less than she deserves. It is also worth noting what she said about her history with healthy eating. This is not a woman who has a complicated relationship with food in a way that would make his concern even remotely valid. She worked hard to lose 60 pounds. She was proud of how she ate. She genuinely misses it. She is not reaching for fast food because she stopped caring or because old habits resurfaced or because she is using pregnancy as an excuse to abandon the work she put in. She is reaching for it because it is one of the only bridges between her and getting enough calories to keep her and her baby alive right now. She knows this is temporary. She is already hoping for medication so she can get back to the version of herself she worked so hard to build. His lack of trust in her judgment and her intentions is not just unhelpful. It is insulting. Okay, but the addictive food for the baby thing, I need to address that directly because it genuinely made me pause. There is no credible nutritional science supporting the idea that a single plain cheeseburger at 12 weeks is going to wire a fetus to crave fast food. That is not how fetal development works. A baby developing in the first trimester is not forming food preferences from trace amounts of whatever the mother can barely keep down. What a fetus absolutely does need is for its mother to be eating something. What a developing pregnancy absolutely does need is calories, protein, hydration, and for the mother to not be in a constant state of physical and emotional stress. Stress hormones are real. Cortisol during pregnancy is real. And nothing elevates cortisol like being made to feel ashamed and judged at your most vulnerable. The cruel science of it is that his worry, expressed the way he expressed it, is doing more measurable harm than that cheeseburger ever could. If he is genuinely worried about nutrition during pregnancy, there are so many constructive ways to show that. He could research what hyperemesis gravidarum looks like and how to support a partner who is dealing with severe nausea. He could ask her what sounds manageable today and whether there is anything he can pick up that might help. He could go with her to her next prenatal appointment and ask the doctor directly about nutrition during the first trimester, so that a qualified medical professional, not his personal opinions, is guiding the conversation. He could simply hold her when she is sick and tell her she is doing an incredible job. He could sit with her on the bathroom floor after she has been sick for the third time in a morning and just be there, quietly, without an agenda, without a complaint. Any of those options would be supportive. Lying awake compiling grievances about a cheeseburger wrapper is not. The fact that she is already second-guessing herself, that she felt the need to post about this and explain herself and justify eating a single hamburger, tells me that his behavior is already working. She is already absorbing guilt that was never hers to carry. She is already starting to feel like the problem, when she is not the problem at all. She is a pregnant woman fighting her own body every single day, navigating a physical experience that is relentless and exhausting and deeply isolating, and she should be walking into her home and feeling like that home is a refuge, not a judgment zone. She needs to have a very direct conversation with him about what support actually looks like right now, not as a lecture, but as a boundary. Something like, I understand you have concerns about nutrition during pregnancy, and I share those concerns, but I need you to understand that right now my first job is keeping food down. And anything that adds stress or shame to that process is actively hurting me and our baby more than a cheeseburger ever could. If he hears that and responds with compassion, you have something to work with. If he doubles down or circles back to the food policing, that is important information about who you are going to be raising a child with. Pregnancy is already one of the hardest physical and emotional experiences a human being can go through. The first trimester especially can be brutal and lonely and disorienting. No one should have to navigate that while simultaneously managing a partner's food anxiety. She deserves someone who looks at her trying to survive on 5 foods and thinks, my goodness, she is doing everything she can, how do I make this easier? Not someone who is tallying the nutrition content of her survival snacks while she sleeps. He is going to be a father. And fatherhood is going to ask him to put someone else's needs ahead of his own feelings on a daily basis in ways he has probably never imagined. There will be sleepless nights that have nothing to do with cheeseburger wrappers and everything to do with a screaming newborn who needs him to show up fully and without resentment. There will be moments when his discomfort is completely irrelevant because someone smaller and more vulnerable needs every ounce of his patience and grace. This moment, right now, is a preview of that. It is a test of whether he can set aside his preferences and discomfort to show up for someone who needs him. He is currently failing that test. And she should tell him so, clearly and without apology, because she and that baby deserve better than guilt disguised as concern. She is not the one who needs to do better here. She is already doing everything she possibly can. If this video hit you somewhere real, drop a comment and tell me which story messed you up more. And if you want more of this kind of thing, a like and subscribe means everything.